Welcome to part 2 of our live training session here with our S13 drift car using a Link G4x plug-and-play standalone system. Now in our last video, we built the base calibration file. This video, we're going to learn how to get our engine fired up and running on our G4x system, learn how to do idle control tuning, learn how to set our timing with a timing light, and then just making sure that we have the engine able to fire up and run and hold and maintain at idle so we can move on to the next steps of doing part throttle calibration process and do the wide open throttle calibration process. So we have a lot to learn. Let's jump into our live training session video so we can get started. Welcome back to our live training session here with our S13 drift car. In our last video, we built our base calibration file. This video, we're going to load the base calibration file up, go through all the basic details so we make sure all of our sensor data is right, everything's calibrated right. We're going to fire up our engine, we're going to check our timing with a timing light. I'm going to show you that process. Then we're going to make sure that we have our fuel, our spark, and our idle controls sorted out so the engine is able to maintain its own idle. We can shut it off, test to make sure that it starts up warm, making sure that we have our cranking feel right, our post-start feel right, and that we have the engine in a state so we can start to drive it. This is always the first step in sorting out working with any kind of standalone. You have to build your base file, you have to upload it, and probably the most time-consuming and stressful part is getting the engine up and running. There's always all kinds of details that we need to cover. So let's jump in here and take a look. We have our file we opened up, or we built, I should say, in our last video here, the base file. It's open on my screen right now. We're going to upload this to our ECU. So there is some kind of a generic file loaded onto the ECU right now. We're going to load this file that we built. So let me go here and turn the power on in the car. I'm not going to start it. Right, you can see right now it's going to show here that ECU has been connected, and it's going to be opening up and working with whatever the file that's been loaded. Now, it's not necessarily what we want to work with. We want to load our last file that we have. So I'm going to go here to File, go to Open. We're going to go into the directory where we saved our file. So I'm going to go to Documents, go down in here into our link area, and then we have here a EPA S13 drift, and we're going to go here and click on our base file. Now it's going to ask me, do I want to go and open this file, and do I want to go and upload this to our link? And that's what I want to do here. I want to click yes, and it's downloading the data to the ECU, so it's going to take a little bit. We're uploading the file to the ECU. So we're transferring all the things that we've worked with and we built in that last video into this video. We can do some quick checks here to make sure everything's right. I'm going to click yes. It's performing the store, so it's stored that information into the ECU. We're going to find it's going to go here and connect. So looking at this, let's just verify it is the same file. We can see we switch it to model mode from traditional. That's one thing we've changed. Let's take a look at our safety. This is going to be unique. These are the fail-safe strategies we built in that last video. So this all looks like what we've structured and we've built and set up. So now we're ready to start to take a look at some of our data here since we know the file has uploaded. Let's go back in here to our basics area and let's start to take a look at some information. So we can see engine speed at 0, map pressure is reading 14.6 psi. Now what I want to do is switch my units, and I don't want to look in units of psi, I want to look in units of kPa. So I'm going to go here to my units and go into metric, and now we can see here roughly 100 kPa. Now we're using the onboard 4-bar map sensor on this particular box. It's plug and play, it's easy. We just run a vacuum line into the little nipple that's on the board, and it runs into analog voltage input 3 on this particular plug and play application. We do see when we key on, engine off, we're reading about 100 kPa. That's actually perfect. I'm at roughly sea level at my elevation here. If you're going to be at a higher elevation, you may find that your map sensor reading is going to be a little bit lower. It might read something like 80 or 90 kPa depending on how high of elevation you're going to be at. On a sea level where I'm at right now, 100 kPa is actually right dead on what it should be reading, so that looks good. Engine coolant temp is showing 85 degrees. We do see intake air temp is showing 82 degrees. Right now my dyno tower is showing me here approximately 83 degrees. This all looks good. We went into the scalers here just real quickly under our analog inputs, our ECT and our IAT sensors. We've set these up. We're running a Nissan SR20 engine coolant temp sensor, and our intake air temp sensor, that was actually from the Power FC that we had previously installed on this car that was running a Mazda RX-7, so a 3rd gen RX-7 intake air temp sensor, and that's what I've scaled here under the standard Bosch NTC. That's what we're finding if we're looking at this. We should see when we key on engine off, if the engine hasn't been ran and the engine's cooled down, we should find that the status here is going to be roughly ambient temperature. So intake air and engine coolant temp when the engine is cooled down should read approximate to ambient. We're seeing that that's the case here, so that looks good. Looking next, we find our throttle position. Right now it's set for 1.5% throttle. That's where it's registering in throttle. If I go here and I give it throttle, notice that it's not registering or reading. This is going to be a calibration problem. And I think I mentioned this in the last video. I wasn't sure what was going on with the throttle position analog input. Let's go and take a look at that real quick here. Let's go to analog input. Into throttle position, that was an analog 5. Now if I go down my list here and I used a harness, the expansion harnesses from our G4X that allows me to add in extra things into my G4X rather than cutting into my header pin, my ECU header pin side, going in instead of the configuration. I was finding here that my analog 5 was set to oil pressure, and I was running into an issue because when I set my oil pressure, I noticed that that wasn't an option because the analog 5 was already taken from throttle position, but that's not the case here. That's not actually going to be accurate. Let's go here and try a different spot for our analog input. Let's go analog input 1, and let's just try this real quick. And if we switch it here, we should be able to go to throttle position. If I move my throttle, we're not finding it move. Let's go try our analog position 2. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.